there's one type of move that most beginners and intermediate level players don't know about. It's like most strong players don't want to reveal this to you guys, but I'm going to try to do so in the hope that you will like this video and subscribe. So there is what we call a clearance sacrifice. Guys, this is a big deal. I know maybe some of you have already heard about this, but I'm gonna show you how powerful this is in 5 different openings, beginning with the French defense where black plays pawn to e6. But first, what is a clearance sacrifice? So a clearance sacrifice is a strategic move where you sacrifice one of your pieces with the purpose of clearing a particular square or line for another piece. So this is where you sacrifice one piece to remove an obstacle and in order to unleash the full potential of another piece. You guys don't seem to get it. Let me show you an example of a clearance sacrifice. For example, in this position, it is white to play the best move in order to win. 4 seconds, let's go. Alright, I know this may be hard for some of you guys, but see, our goal is to deliver a smaller checkmate here, so we would love to play Queen G8 check so that if Rook takes, we now play Knight F7 checkmate. But how do we achieve this? Well, there's one piece that is blocking our way, so we need to get rid of that one piece, which is the Rook. So in this case, I would play Rook F8 check, because I know if Bishop takes, by the way, I can just go ahead and checkmate black so easily. But after Rook F8 check, if black takes with his Rook, this is when I can simply go Queen G8 check and black can take with his king since the light squared bishop is eyeing that square. So Rook takes is the only valid move, after which I go Knight F7. This is a smoother checkmate. So it had to take me to sacrifice this Rook to clear the way for my queen. So this is simply a term used to describe a deliberate sacrifice of material with the goal of clearing another square or diagonal or a file. Let's look at the second example. Now this is where you're playing white pieces and all of your pieces, the Rook, Queen, and the other Rook are all sitting along the J file. So it's white to play in this position. Try to find a way to clear the line for your white queen. Let's go. If I was playing white in this position, I would instantly bliss out the move that I'm about to show you guys. I know some of you thought of Rook G8 check, but if you do that, black can easily take back with his other Rook supported by the Knight on F6, so be careful. In this case, you want to give black a check this way, so Rook H7 is the way to go, because now black's king can't escape from Sobibo. So next, they just have to take your Rook with the Knight or their king, after which you simply deliver a checkmate on G7 like this. By the way, I'm using a public Lee chess study. Thanks to the author of this, it makes it easier for me to explain what a clearance sacrifice is. So back to our French defense opening, I want to show you a more practical example of how you can make use of clearance sacrifices better with pawns. For example, after e4 and pawn to e6, what I like doing against some of my unprepared opponents is to play the Alpine Gambit, which goes like this, where I play bishop e3 immediately. Why bishop e3? This is more than a gambit, you guys. We always get back our pawn on e4, otherwise black may find himself in big trouble. For example, after de, we simply go knight b d2, so we sacrificed a pawn to create another attacking opportunity. Though some may argue to say this is not the concept of clearance sacrifice, it's some sort of a decoy. Well, I can say it's both, because we sacrificed a pawn to open up some lines and create some new square chances. For example, after knight to f6 by black, now we start putting more pressure on this pawn. We can go pawn to c3, intending to go queen c2 next. They like playing b6, which is the top played move, trying to do this, but we can simply go pawn to g3 as well, so that if bishop b7, we also play bishop g2. So 2 defenders versus 2 attackers. We need one more piece to pressure the e4 pawn, which is the queen in this case. So after something like knight b d7, which is the top played move in this position, you can simply go queen c2. Now you have 3 attackers, and what were you doing? So you sacrificed a pawn on e4 in an effort to clear some important squares for your other minor pieces. Even if black plays pawn to c5, by the way, you can just go ahead and take back your pawn well and good. If knight takes, you take with your bishop. If bishop takes, you take back with your queen, nothing much. If d takes e4, you can just take back with your bishop and maintain your pawn structure. So you can see at the end of the day, we managed to simplify the game. So one may ask, since this does not really look like a clearance sacrifice, where was the clearance sacrifice in this case? Watch. After e4, e6, d4, and pawn to d5, we decided to play bishop e3 so that one day when the dust settles, our queen can find its way to sit on e4. So fast forward to the end, you can see that our queen successfully managed to sit on e4, which can be thought of a long-term clearance sacrifice, arguably of course. So that's just one example of that. Let me show you a more practical gambit where we sacrifice a pawn in order to clear some line for another piece. Another beautiful example of a clearance sacrifice in the opening stage can be spotted in this coach after the following sequence of moves: e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, the top played move, and instead of playing pawn to c3 or castle short like what everybody does, you want to play knight g5 to put more pressure on this f7 pawn. But you've seen that you can't do that immediately because your knight will be hanging. It's not defended by any piece. So this is where you can introduce an early pawn to d4 move. See, you only have two pieces that are defending your d4 pawn while black has three attackers. So one may ask, what happens if black plays the top played move, e takes d4, taking your free pawn? I mean, because you can't take back. Well, the idea is that you just wanted to create another square for your knight. So you sacrificed your pawn. You moved your pawn from d2 in order to pave way for your dark squared bishop. Now it is protecting your knight on g5. So these are just simple stuffs showing the ideas of clearance sacrifices. Again, not the ideal example, I do understand, but this is just the opening stage. I'm just trying to show you some ideas behind the clearance sacrifice. So we cleared the way for our bishop, to protect our knight on g5. So that's why we sacrificed our pawn on d2. What's the idea here? Well, the idea is that whatever black does, for example, let's say knight h6 to protect his f7 pawn. Well, you can just simply sacrifice your knight on f7. That's fine, because if knight takes, you can simply go bishop takes f7, and after king takes, you simply go queen h5 check, and after pawn to g6, you can even fancy a little bit by going queen d5 check, making the king move one more time, or just probably take on c5 right away. Yes, the game is very much equal according to Stockfish, but what's the catch here? First of all, you messed up black's plans. You destroyed his king side. He's no longer going to castle short as he does normally, and thanks to the pawn you sacrificed on d4, because now the path for your bishop is very clear. And after knight b d2, you can castle long if you want and begin to expand on the king side like this. Just some little ideas for you. Another way you can play this is by starting with e4, and after e5 you go knight f3. If knight c6, you still go bishop c4, and after bishop c5 you make use of this first clearance sacrifice again, preparing for knight g5. Very common stuff, but people don't just realize that this is a good example of a clearance sacrifice. After ed, once again, instead of going knight g5, you can simply play another pawn to c3, though not really a sacrifice, but what you're trying to do is that if dc happens, you simply go bishop takes f7 check, and after king takes, you now go queen d5 check, and on the next move, win black's bishop on c5. Or first, you can fancy a little bit with a move queen h5 check, and after pawn to g6, creating a weakness on the king side. That's when you go queen takes c5. So in this case, you played two clearance sacrifices to let your queen give this check and capture the bishop on c5. Not to mention that you made black lose his right to castle, which explains why the Scotch game or the Scotch Gambit is quite a very nice opening, especially for beginners, because of these little clearance sacrifices. So that's the major difference between you who is watching out there and other strong players or titled players out there. You can play the opening stage very well, even more than a titled player, and you can also play your middle game very well, but These guys are very good when it comes to make use of these principles, especially in the end game. So a grandmaster sees many clearance sacrifices on the board when they reach the middle game or when they reach the end game. So the game may be very much equal in the opening stage, and you might also shine a little in the middle game, but when it comes to the end game, they'll start thinking of all these clearance sacrifices, positional sacrifices, etc., just to divide your attention. Hey you guys, thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.